It was our 5th anniversary. 5 years. A milestone, right? I had it all planned out. I woke up extra early, the sun just barely peeking over the horizon, painting the sky in these soft, pastel colors. I tiptoed around our apartment, a giddy smile plastered on my face. I made his favorite breakfast, blueberry pancakes, crispy bacon, and freshly squeezed orange juice. I even dug out that fancy coffee I save for special occasions. I set the table, lit a candle, and placed a small, neatly wrapped gift next to his plate. It was a vintage watch I'd spent months searching for. I waited and waited. The pancakes got cold. The candle burned down to a waxy puddle. He finally emerged from the bedroom, yawning, phone already in hand, scrolling through something. He glanced at the table, then at me. "Oh wow, you went all out. What's the occasion?" My heart sank. It felt like a lead weight in my chest. The smile I'd been holding onto all morning just melted. "The occasion?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Mark, it's our anniversary." He froze, the color drained from his face. I saw the panic, the frantic search in his eyes for an excuse. "Oh my God, babe, I am so sorry. It completely slipped my mind. Work has been insane. I didn't want to hear it. Not this time." Forgetting a birthday is one thing, but an anniversary, 5 years. It felt like he wasn't just forgetting a date. He was forgetting us. The argument that followed was ugly. It was the culmination of months, maybe even years, of feeling overlooked. All the little moments of forgetfulness, the missed dates, the promises that evaporated into thin air, they all came rushing back. I cried, he yelled, we threw words at each other like weapons. I told him I needed space. I packed a small bag, the silence in the apartment now deafening, and went to stay with my friend Sarah. Sarah was my rock. She listened. She held me while I sobbed, and she handed me a glass of wine without judgment. "He's always been a bit forgetful, hasn't he?" she said gently. And she was right. It wasn't a new thing. Mark had always been scattered. He'd forget his keys, his wallet, appointments. I used to find it endearing, a charming quirk. But now it just felt like carelessness. It felt like I wasn't important enough to remember it. The next few days were a blur of work, sad movies, and endless conversations with Sarah. Mark's texts and calls went unanswered. I needed to figure out what I wanted, if this was a deal breaker. Was I willing to spend the rest of my life with someone who might forget our wedding day? One evening, Sarah sat me down. She had a serious look on her face. "Listen," she started. "I was talking to my cousin, you know, the one who's a doctor, and I was just venting about Mark, and she said something that kind of stuck with me. She told me about how her cousin had a patient with similar symptoms, forgetting important dates, being disorganized, struggling to focus. It wasn't just being a typical guy, it could be a sign of something more. Specifically, ADHD. Adult Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. At first, I brushed it off. ADHD. That's for hyperactive kids, right? Mark was the calmest person I knew, but Sarah urged me to just look it up. So, late that night, I did. I fell down a rabbit hole of articles and forums and personal stories, and the more I read, the more a chill ran down my spine. It wasn't just about being forgetful, it was about executive dysfunction. Trouble planning, organizing, time management. It was the dozen unfinished projects in our spare room. It was him being late to everything, not by minutes, but by hours. Because he'd get hyper-focused on one small task and lose all track of time. It was the way he'd interrupt me, not to be rude, but because he was terrified he'd forget his thought if he did unsay it right then and there. Every article, every checklist, it was like reading a biography of Mark. It was all there. It wasn't that he didn't care. It was that his brain was wired differently. The realization hit me like a physical blow. I had spent years feeling unloved and unimportant, interpreting his actions through the lens of my own neurotypical brain. I was mad at him for not meeting expectations that his brain was literally struggling to meet. The guilt was overwhelming. I went home the next morning. Mark was sitting on the couch, looking exhausted and heartbroken. The apartment was spotless. He'd cleaned everything, even organized the bookshelf he'd been meaning to get to for a year. It was his way of apologizing, of showing he cared. I sat down next to him, and for a long time we just sat in silence. Then I took a deep breath. "Mark," I said, my voice shaky, "I think we need to talk. Not about us. Not really. About you." I told him everything I'd read. I watched his face as I described the symptoms. I saw a flicker of confusion, then denial, and then a slow, dawning recognition. He told me he'd always felt like something was off. He thought he was just lazy or stupid. He'd been told his whole life to just try harder, to just focus. He'd developed all these coping mechanisms, like his obsessive list-making, but he always felt like he was failing, like he was constantly letting people down, especially me. He admitted he knew the anniversary was coming up. He'd even set a dozen reminders. But on the day, his mind just went blank. The shame of forgetting was so intense that he panicked and made it worse. That conversation changed everything. It wasn't an excuse, but it was an explanation. It reframed our entire relationship. His forgetfulness wasn't a reflection of his love for me. It was a symptom of a neurological condition. It was the beginning of a new journey for us. Mark made an appointment to see a specialist. Getting a diagnosis was a long process, but when he finally got it, it was like a massive weight had been lifted off both of us. It gave us a name for the invisible wall that had been standing between us. We started learning together. We learned about strategies to manage his ADHD. We put up a big whiteboard in the kitchen with all our important dates and tasks. We started using shared digital calendars with loud, obnoxious alarms. I learned to be more direct with my needs, and he learned to ask for help when he felt overwhelmed. It wasn't easy. There were still frustrating days, but the difference was we were a team now. We were fighting the ADHD, not each other. Our real 5th anniversary celebration happened about a month later. It wasn't fancy. We just ordered a pizza and sat on the floor of our living room, talking. He gave me my gift. It wasn't the watch I'd bought him. It was a small, leather-bound journal. Inside, on the first page, he had written, "A place for all the memories I never want to forget." It's been a few years since then. Mark's on medication now, and it's helped immensely. But the biggest change has been in our understanding and communication. That forgotten anniversary, the one that almost broke us, actually ended up saving us. It forced us to confront an issue we didn't even know we had, and it taught us that sometimes the biggest demonstrations of love aren't grand gestures or remembering a date. It's the willingness to look deeper, to listen, and to love someone not in spite of their struggles, but through them. If you feel like you or someone you love might be going through something similar, please don't hesitate to reach out to a healthcare professional. Getting help and understanding is a sign of strength. Thanks for listening to our story. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. See you next time.